012, and it gives me 1,250 feet. Texas.
Announced the arrival of their flight from Los Angeles and Chicago.
Explosion.
And welcome one and all to this edition of T&Z Talk, and T&Z are definitely going to talk. I am Tony Trupiano. It is Thursday, actually, the 23rd day of June. I can't believe that we're almost at the end of June, but we are. Joining me now is the Z in T&Z, Richard Zombeck, writer extraordinaire for the Huffington Post and Liberals Unite. And liberals do unite. A good day, my friend Richard Zombeck.
Good June, as you say.
Yes.
It's actually, we've had wonderful weather here, by the way. Just thought I'd let you know.
Yeah, as have we. We've had some really hot days, but we've also had some very lovely days. So I'm into that. The sit-in's over.
The sit-in is over. And those terrorists, yeah.
Huh.
Criminals and terrorists.
Well, let's be mindful that what the sit-in did was pretty extraordinary. And in fact, the sit-in may be the bridge for those to the farther left in the Democratic Party. So hear me out for just a moment. These are this kind of civil disobedience, if you will, is the kind of thing that far left people love. And this was incredibly successful in a lot of different ways. And I don't think it's just symbolic, and I think that there will be a vote on gun legislation. I think things are going to be better. But, I mean, I don't know. Are you aware that the Democrats broke a bunch of rules by doing this?
I am. And so, that's kind of my question, right? Is what kind of precedent does this set? And will the Republicans be staging a sit-in to vote on banning abortion, for example?
No, but if we go back a few years when the Democrats were controlling the House, Nancy Pelosi did a similar thing on drilling for oil in the U.S. And the Republicans did, it certainly wasn't what happened yesterday or 26 hours. But she did turn the cameras off. So this is not unprecedented. And the Democrats, when they had their turn, used it. So I don't think it necessarily sets a precedent, except that maybe it gives people that serve this great country that are supposed to be representing all of us a new window to open when they need to. I don't know, really, I don't know how impromptu the sit-in was yesterday. I don't, I think John Lewis at some point, Z, had to have at least got a core group of people together and said, hey, this is what I'm planning to do. Will you join me?
No, I think they did. And actually, I forget her first name, but her name was Clark. So they were Lewis and Clark.
There's some symmetry there.
Lewis and Clark writing history once again. And I think there was a plan. He gave his speech, and then he asked the rest of the Democratic body to join him in a sit-in. And you're right, they did break a lot of rules. They were accused of political showmanship. But I also think that there's a certain degree of fear that this sets an example and sets us up for more of these, and more of these being more ridiculous of these. And it was like you said, it was civil disobedience. They broke a lot of rules. They also are not allowed to photograph in Congress, and they did that. I think C-SPAN deserves props for getting the Periscope and Snapchat feeds, and then when those were no longer available, using the live Facebook feeds and broadcasting those on C-SPAN.
Right.
I think that despite that there were rules being broken and that this was civil disobedience, that shows a certain degree of journalistic integrity on the part of C-SPAN to have continued to cover what was going on in the House of Representatives.
Well, and you're right. And as you pointed out yesterday, C-SPAN does not control the cameras. So their entire existence, well, not their entire, but certainly during the business hours of the Senate and the House, they televise, and there's nothing fancy about it, but they televise what's going on there.
Yeah.
It can be very boring for the most part, but it's, I think, good public service. So they did, I think, what it was incumbent upon them to do. And that was to find a way to continue to do the business that C-SPAN does. And they did it well.
Yes, they did. And, speaking of media, the Fox media, of course, was completely apoplectic. Having a little trouble with my words today. I think you gave me what you had yesterday.
I knew you were going there. I just knew you were going there.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you really? And and MSNBC, the hosts on MSNBC were positively orgasmic at what was going on. And this was an historic event, what happened yesterday, and definitely worthy of praise as far as I'm concerned. I thought it was great, particularly that it was John Lewis,
Yeah.
Particularly that it was him. And here's the thing, right? And this is, I was on the verge of making this comment yesterday, and I'm going to make it today. Because this is not the first time that John Lewis has been shut down. And he was shut down by Darrell Issa. Darrell Issa cut off his mic. Yesterday, Paul Ryan cut off the cameras. And then he actually came in and tried to restart a session of Congress. And every time they do this to Lewis, my first thought is uppity Negro. That's what these guys are thinking when they pull this kind of stuff. And it really bothers me. It really, really bothers me. Because like I said on yesterday's episode, this guy deserves the respect of every single member of Congress for what he did, and for what he endured, and for what he's been through, and for what he's accomplished.
Listen, it is beyond comprehension. And there are others, and we have some audio, actually, that have verbally gone after John Lewis. And I'm disturbed. A member of the Wayne LaPierre called John Lewis a terrorist.
Well, not.
It was somebody from the NRA. It wasn't LaPierre, was it?
Yeah, I can't remember who it's from. Like this NRA radio idiot that has, for some reason, his own show that's completely dedicated to the NRA, which is, just great.
All right, well, let's get to some audio, and you can decide which one you want to air first. But let's stick with the NRA for a little bit.
All right.
Again, the broadcast today, we've got several, more than several, I think about 70 House Democrats, that's the last number that I've seen, are staging a sit-in on the floor of the House demanding a vote on gun control measures. Now, I've not heard them offer any specific legislation. I'm trying to see if there is any specific legislation. I think generally they're talking about, again, some sort of watch list bill, but who knows what form that would take. But again, it's not necessarily about the legislation. It's about the attention. It is about the, and by the way, it's fascinating. So C-SPAN is not airing this. The House has turned the cameras off because the House is in recess. But you've got every member of Congress who's taking part in this event is there with their staffers, of course, and they've got their smartphones, and some of them are streaming this on Periscope, and others are taking their selfies, or they're having a staffer take their picture, and they're posting this on social media in violation of the House rule on photography. Really? Okay. So, in order to push legislation that the sponsors say would not have prevented the attacks in Orlando, Florida, they're also going to flout the House rules. Kind of like, you know, criminals and terrorists flout the rules that we have in place right now and will continue to do so. This is, I got to say, this is just my opinion, but this is just the worst form of political theater. And it's for media consumption. And I'm sure the media is loving it. It's going to be the story of the day. And, you know, I'll just bet. Maybe I'm wrong on this. I'll just bet that we continue to see the approval ratings for Congress and the media continue to ooze down deeper into the muck and mire where they are already.
So that was the NRA's radio show, Cam and Company, with host Cam Edwards. And I think I said NPR earlier. It was definitely not NPR's show. It was NRA's show.
You had said NRA. You did not say NPR.
Oh, did I? Okay.
Yeah.
So that was Cam Edwards. And here's the interesting thing, right? It says the cameras are off because the House is in recess. Well, the House is in recess because Speaker Paul Ryan called the House to recess because of what John Lewis did. He closed down the session yesterday and turned off the cameras because he didn't want anybody seeing this.
Wow. Well, a lot of people saw it. And social media was, if you'll excuse the expression, all of Twitter, with people holding signs that said no bill, no break, with the hashtag no bill, no break. And they were sitting. I don't know if you saw any of those. I saw quite a few of them this morning.
Yeah. I also saw my favorite senator and my senator, Elizabeth Warren, on her birthday, bring coffee and donuts to the sit-in.
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah.
She was great. There were a lot of great people. And by the way, he said 70 Democrats, 140.
Yeah, thank you.
Throughout the entire sit-in. Now, they didn't all stay the entire time, but there were 140, not 70. So let's be clear on that. You've also got another piece of audio where the NRA radio host goes after John Lewis.
Cam Edwards.
Yeah, Cam Edwards. Let's get to that.
Yeah.
And again, the I don't even know what to call it. I mean, a sit-in, again, generally speaking, we saw these sit-ins in the civil rights movement that were advocating for individuals being able to enjoy the same rights that other Americans enjoyed. Right? I mean, that's what the protests were. That's what they were. We're sitting at this lunch counter, and we're not leaving until we get served. Not, we're sitting at this lunch counter, and we're not leaving until you remove this item from the menu. We're going to sit right here, and we're not leaving until you recognize us as human beings, as Americans, who have the same rights that guy has over there, and that she has over there. That's what the sit-ins were about in the civil rights movement. This, on the other hand, this isn't Congress demanding more rights for Americans. This isn't Congress demanding rights for themselves. This is Congress demanding power. These are House Democrats demanding the authority and the power to ignore the Fifth Amendment when they see fit, to view the Bill of Rights as an impediment to lawmakers, to treat it as such, and to try to degrade. And kind of like what they say with ISIS, right? Degrade and destroy. We're kind of witnessing the degradation and the destruction of the Bill of Rights right now. Where, again, you've got self-professed thought leaders who say it's time to repeal the Second Amendment. The Constitution itself is outdated. And then you've got lawmakers who just want to ignore the Bill of Rights.
So how exactly do we unpack this one? Right.
Well, I mean, first of all, it's an opinion, and he's stating it as if it's fact, which is a common media strategy when you want people to believe something. And conservatives, and I'm assuming that Cam Edwards is conservative, is no different. If you tell it enough times, people end up believing it.
Well, the part that I don't want to say disturbs me, the part that gets me about what he said is that so he's comparing the sit-in of the 60s in diners with this. Okay, so we have that. But then he's saying that those sit-ins were asking for rights, whereas this is impeding on rights. And the rights that he's talking about are the rights of people who are on a terrorist watch list to buy assault rifles in this country. That somehow that's a constitutional right, right? Because the Constitution, as we know, was written by Moses. or so the conservatives seem to believe. And these are the rights that the Democrats are trampling on by having a sit-in the House of Representatives yesterday.
Well, and people are going to spin it the way they want to. The reality is it was a profound gesture. We say it could just be a demonstration. It could have just been political theater. It could have been all of the above. I'm fine with that. I think that, as we discussed yesterday, imagine the frustration of being a member of Congress. You only have a 2-year term. You got to run every 2 years. And you do nothing. I mean, you can be in the minority and accomplish nothing.
Yeah, well, we talked about that yesterday. It's obviously raised John Lewis's level of frustration to a degree that he just couldn't take it anymore. And I can completely understand that. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, listen, a couple other things that are going on, and they're non-political. So if you'll just bear with me a moment, there's a story that really caught my attention earlier today. A man, and maybe you heard about this, maybe you haven't. I just saw the headline earlier today, had a chance to just read most of the article. But there was a man in Texas that had left his child in a car, and it was very hot. So he brings this child home and sticks her in the refrigerator to try to cool her off and save her.
I got nothing.
All right, here we go. Let me just read this from the Washington Post. When Michael Thedford arrived at the daycare Tuesday morning to drop off his 3 children, he found that the youngest, his 6-month-old daughter, was a little ill and running a fever. So he dropped off the 5-year-old and the 3-year-old and headed back home in his van with the infant. When he reached his house in Melissa, Texas, though, he decided he needed a nap. In his haste to get inside, he forgot Fern, that was his daughter's name, in the van while he slept for about 4 hours, according to the arrest warrant. The temperature in Melissa soared to 95 degrees on Tuesday. At 1 p.m., Michael woke up and realized his daughter was in the car. Panicking, he ran to the front yard. When he reached the van and flung open the door, he found his daughter stiff as a board and hot as a brick. She was unresponsive as he carried her little body into the house, apparently in an attempt to cool her down. He then did the unthinkable. He placed his daughter in the refrigerator among the groceries and left her there for an quote-unquote undetermined length of time. After a while, he pulled her body from the fridge and attempted to perform CPR. Only then did he call his wife and the authorities, both of whom rushed to the house. According to a neighbor, the couple hugged and cried together. Fern was dead. Michael has since been charged with manslaughter.
Oh.
I am just stunned. I am stunned by that story.
I don't even know what to say on that. I mean, there's plenty of things I could say, but I don't know enough about any of this to really even want to comment on it, Tony.
Well, you know what I know. Listen. I raised 3 children. I dropped them at daycare. I picked them up. How do you forget a child in the car? How selfish can you be that this nap was more important? Now think, he slept for 4 hours. Now he's got his infant daughter. What if he didn't forget her? Then what would he have done? Would he have napped still? Would he have left her in a crib? I have no idea. You have no idea.
Well, selfishness, which you just mentioned, is one possibility. Drugs and alcohol is another possibility. Texas, I believe, has a big meth problem. That's another possibility. There are a number of reasons why you would need to hurry to take a nap in the afternoon for 4 hours. That's a pretty long nap. That's almost half a night's sleep.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to share that story. And then there was another headline that caught my attention. So I thought I would share it with you. The headline is, "I hated this man more than my rapist. Woman confronts football coach 18 years after alleged gang rape." So let me just again read a couple paragraphs of this story. Inspirational speakers are frequent visitors to college football teams. Alumni now in the NFL return to dole out advice. Superstars from other sports stop by to talk competitive spirit. Sports psychologists discuss how to handle stress. Brenda Tracy is none of these. But there she was Wednesday afternoon, standing in front of the University of Nebraska football team, delivering a powerful speech unlike any the players are likely to ever hear. Back in 1998, when Tracy was 24, she was gang raped by 4 football players. 2 of her attackers played for Oregon State University. When the charges were dropped and the players received nothing more than a 1-game suspension, their coach called the 2 men, quote, really good guys who made a bad choice. That coach, the one whose words had enraged her 18 years earlier, was now standing in front of her. Mike Riley, once coach of OSU, is now in charge of Nebraska football. Tracy wasn't holding back. You're going to love this, see. She said, "At one point, I hated this man more than my rapists," referring to Riley. She described in graphic detail her gang rape, her thoughts of suicide, her long struggle to feel normal. You could literally see the whole room turn and look at Coach Riley, she told reporters. It was intense. I saw them look. I could feel it. Almost as remarkable as Tracy's speech, however, was the person she was there in the first place. Riley had invited her. Their meeting was nearly 2 decades in the making. In that time, sexual assault on college campuses has gone from a silent epidemic to the subject of intense national discussion. Could telling her story in front of the man who she felt had trivialized her suffering so many years ago provide a semblance of closure? I can't even imagine the horror this woman went through, Z. I can't imagine what the last 18 years are like, but I am very proud of Brenda Tracy today.
Yeah, good for her.
Not only was she gang raped, not only was it a horrific experience, but at the time she was struggling working as a waitress. She was a single mother of 2 young boys. She was 24 years old. And they did this while she was unconscious. And when she came to, well, you know what she was experiencing.
Yeah, well, it's like the, what's his face there from Stanford that got 6 months. And his father was like, oh, come on, you're going to give him that much time for 20 minutes of getting his rocks off?
Well, get a load of this. This is her quote now. The attack lasted more than 6 hours, and as I went in and out of consciousness, the things they did to me are now burned into my memory. Like a piece of cattle, I was branded, never to forget 8 hands on me, inside me. Their laughs as they high-fived each other in a congratulatory manner as each took turns raping me. Never to forget the next morning when I awoke to the smell of dried vomit in my hair, the stickiness of a condom stuck to my stomach, the food crumbs that left indentations on my skin as I lay face down on the apartment floor like a piece of garbage that somebody forgot to pick up.
Oof.
Now, beyond her courage and all of the good things we can say about her, the 4 men that did this. By the way, one of them was a high school recruit, was there for a recruiting trip. How could they ever live with themselves knowing what they did to this beautiful woman?
Well, like I said, if the kid from Stanford, whose name eludes me right now, is any indication, they probably don't have a lot to think about it.
No. All right. Another huge story today, and then we'll get back to politics. Cesar Goodson Jr. was one of the people that allegedly was responsible for Freddie Gray's death in Baltimore. He was acquitted of all the charges today.
Well, that's a surprise.
Right. Now, to the family, to the people that live there, to a city that came unglued and rioted, how do you find resolution in this?
I'm kind of surprised that we're not seeing more riots and protests, and or have we just become immune to this? I mean, I was looking at this from Vox, Tony, in the 26 hours that the sit-in lasted. 88 people were shot in this country.
Yeah, I saw that.
88 people.
Since 11:30 a.m. yesterday morning.
Yeah, that's one every 17 minutes.
11:25, if you want to be specific.
Yep. One every 17 minutes.
And so, listen, we're about 30 minutes into our show today. And where's the good news?
Yeah, well, here's I'm not responding to your question. I'm continuing with one of the victims in Adel, Georgia. A 14-year-old shot and killed his 22-year-old half sister, who was pregnant.
Huh.
Yeah. Yep. And around 1 p.m., a 4-year-old Philadelphia girl was shot in the eye. She died in front of her 25-year-old mother and 4-year-old sibling. So this is the stuff that's going on in this country, that basically a civil rights icon is protesting civil disobedience, whatever you will, and the NRA calls him a terrorist because he's against giving terrorists guns.
This really pissed you off, didn't it? I mean, it really pissed you off.
Yeah, it really did. And, I was watching a lot of the video yesterday and, listening to John Lewis. And, I may be wrong, and you may know this, so correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm under the impression that he talks and carries himself the way he does because of injuries he sustained when he was beaten by the police. Is that accurate?
Sure it is.
Yeah. And, he's carried these injuries for his entire life. And I'm watching this and I'm listening to him and I'm watching what's happening. And I'm watching on the other side as the Republicans accuse them of grandstanding, of pulling a publicity stunt, as NRA radio calls them terrorists and criminals. And the whole time I'm thinking in the back of my head, this isn't going to do a goddamn thing. And nothing is still going to change. And it makes me angry. It makes me sad. I don't want to be overly dramatic, but it strips away hope. And it frightens me. It frightens me that 3 top executives in the National Rifle Association have co-opted a Republican Congress to the point that they will not act to prevent gun violence, to prevent murders, to prevent senseless killings, accidental killings, suicides, 14-year-old kid shooting his sister who is with child. It completely baffles me.
The sad reality is that there are reasons. And we do know that there are a disproportionate amount of murders in this country that are committed by people of color. And I believe, and I always have, and I will continue to believe, that racism still plays a role in that. That lack of opportunity, lack of hope. How many generations of people of color have never gotten out of the ghetto, have never known what it's like to drive a new car that you own, have never owned their own home, have never been able to go to the grocery store and buy whatever they want. This doesn't excuse murder, see? But it's a culture that has been ignored. We saw it in Baltimore with the riots. We saw it in the 60s with the riots in Detroit and Watts. And the sad reality is, when you and I wake up in the morning, we have white skin. We can go anywhere. We can drive safely. We can run down the street. We can do things that black kids just can't do. Nor can black adults. And what a sad, sad commentary that is on an America that is now fighting about immigration, that is not providing common sense gun laws. Listen, I understand the reality, dude. Guns are like drugs. If you make them harder to get, people will still be able to get them. I get that. But there have to be harsher penalties. There has to be a system of accountability. Z, where's the shame in waiting 3 to 5 days for a gun? How does that take away somebody's civil rights? Better yet, when you go to buy a gun, they ask you if you have a mental illness. All you have to do is say no.
Yeah, I know.
That's it. It's that simple.
I know.
Anyway, I'd like to get to the Joe Scarborough audio.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he's been good lately. I mean, he's been really good.
He's been very good. He's been you know, he's still a Republican, he's still a conservative, but he's been on the side of reason.
Yeah, shockingly. Anyway, let's listen to that audio and then we'll comment on the other side.
What 85% of Americans say they want, which is expanded background checks, and for people on this list, which the list is very important to keeping us safe. So I think we want to protect the list, but protect the individuals. Could you then support some of this legislation?
Well, it would depend on what the legislation was. But yes, look, if there's something where we can pinpoint people that we have a high reason to believe are engaged in terrorist activity, that's one thing. But that's the point. We're talking about a list that had congressmen, district attorneys, average Americans. Nobody knows how you get on the list. Once you're on it, it's very hard to get off of it. It's an incredible invasion of your rights as an individual, and it's
so Congressman,
overreach.
are you suggesting then why don't we just get rid of the list if it's so bad? I don't understand. Why have the list at all? Because I guarantee you, if somebody commits a terror act that is on that list, you and everybody else is going to be saying, why wasn't the FBI on this guy?
Almost everybody on that list is a foreigner, by the way, and not able to buy a firearm in America anyway. We're actually talking about a fairly small population of Americans that are on the list. And it depends whether you're talking about the no-fly list or the terrorist watch list.
But you say the list is so awful that maybe we should just get rid of. No, it's not complex. You're saying that this is a terrible list, that it's strewn with errors. So just get rid of the list. This is the same argument that I hear on background checks. Well, we already have a background check system, and it's so terribly flawed, so we can't fix a background check system. I don't get it. Does the terror watch list serve a useful purpose or not?
Yes, it does. But is it a 100%
so doesn't
good
it
list?
make sense? Does it make sense then, if it serves a useful purpose, that you do your job as a legislator and senators do their jobs as legislators and make sure it's an even better list, so we make sure that people that are on that terror watch list can't go in and buy an AR-15 and mow down people in Oklahoma?
Do you know anybody that did that? The murderer wasn't on the list.
I'm just asking you. No, it's not the point. The point is we are in a war against terrorists that want to kill people in your district, that want to kill people in your state,
I know something
that want
about
to kill
terrorism.
people
I
across
lived through an
America.
incident in Oklahoma City.
I know you lived through terrorism. Yeah, I understand that.
The largest incident domestically in American history.
Why don't we try to prevent the next Oklahoma City instead of sitting back and acting like this doesn't actually make sense to stop people who are on a terror watch list from being able to walk into a gun store and get an AR-15? Doesn't that make sense to you?
Of course it makes sense. If the list is accurate and you don't have innocent people, and you know how people get on there, we weren't voting on anything remotely like that yesterday. And then, by the way, again, the Senate did vote. The House Appropriations Committee did vote.
Fix
and if you
the
go
list.
Back and listen
this is
to the
my
list,
point, Congressman. Fix the list. If you say the terror list makes sense.
That's not actually just a legislative system. This is an administration.
You fund the administration. You have oversight over the administration. You have the power to make sure that list works right. So the people that are on that list should be on that list.
Yeah, and we'll get a lot of cooperation from the administration to achieve that. Hopefully we will.
Don't fund them then. You get the power of the person. Read the Constitution. The Constitution gives you the power
I think
to
I've
fund.
read the Constitution.
The Constitution gives you the power for oversight.
Think I'm pretty well
I
aware
understand
of that,
Congressman. Well, then don't act like you're helpless. You've got the power.
I don't pretend I'm helpless, but I'm not going to vote for bad legislation simply because it's politically expedient to do.
And I'm not saying you do. I'm talking about the question that I keep asking is, if the list is so flawed, then why don't you and other congressmen and congresswomen and senators use the power to make the list more effective?
I think that effort is underway. But that's not what we were talking about yesterday. We didn't have legislation moving through committee under normal process. We didn't have administration coming with requests to try and approve the list. We had a political stunt.
All right. Congressman, we love having you on.
Always
we will see you again soon. Always great to have you here. We'll be right back with more Morning Joe.
And they like each other. They actually, Joe Scarborough was not in studio this morning when he had that conversation, and Willie Geist and Mike Barnacle both wanted to make it clear that Joe Scarborough and Tom Cole from Oklahoma are actually pretty good friends. And that was a heated debate and discussion, and it wasn't as contentious as one might think. However, good for Joe Scarborough.
All right, let's first of all, what the hell is Donald Trump doing in Scotland? And well, I know he's opening a new golf course there that his son Eric was responsible for coordinating, and he's there for all of 36 hours. And what an asshat this guy is. Now, of all the stories that I saw this morning, the one that blew my mind was the headline that said it took 10 Associated Press reporters to call through Donald Trump's speech to collect the falsehood. 10 investigative reporters, Z. 10.
Yeah. And what's your point?
You and I talked earlier today, and I said, why are some members of the mainstream media focusing more on, was Donald Trump's speech presidential? Was it a turn in his campaign? Was it this? Was it that? Did he deliver it okay from the teleprompter? When the only thing that they should be talking about is the falsehoods, the lies, the constant making up of whatever he feels will get people's ire.
Well, and you're absolutely right. This is, I mean, we're seeing a lot of this, right? Is he gives this speech for the teleprompter that he reads badly, and they all start commenting on, well, he's finally looking like he might be towing the line, and it looks like he could actually be the president, and he's actually, wow, he looked pretty good in that speech. That was excellent. Well done. Oh, very good, sir. And in the meantime, like you said, he's just just making stuff up.
Well, we have plenty of audio, so I'll let you decide what we want to get to first.
Well, interestingly enough, I recently posted an article on Liberals Unite. The title of it is CNN Dedicates Entire Staff to Fact-Checking Trump in Real Time. And what I really like is they've actually dedicated a staff of 20 to fact-checking him basically constantly. And this started with CNN, one of their shows called At This Hour. Jason Carroll reported that Trump had claimed that he never said that he wanted Japan to get nuclear weapons. And the network rolled footage of Trump saying earlier that day that Japan should have nukes. And you know what the chyron is, right?
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
the little text. So for our listeners, it's the little text box at the bottom of the screen. And that read, Trump, I never said Japan should have nukes. And in parentheses, he did. So they fact-checked him in real time using the chyron at the bottom of the screen. And it was hilarious. It was like one of the best moves on the part of CNN that I've seen in a long time. And James, I don't even know how to pronounce his last name, Poniewozik, tweeted out a picture of that and of the chyron that said progress on fact-checking in chyrons. So yesterday, I believe, CNN's reality check team was on TV fact-checking Donald Trump's most recent speech, and here's the audio for that.
The reality check team was very busy during all of this, Ashley. But I will point out a number of items here that we got around to. Trump attacked Clinton's plan to increase the number of Syrian refugees taken into America. Listen.
Under her plan, we would admit hundreds of thousands of refugees from the most dangerous countries on earth with no way to screen who they are, what they believe, where they come from.
He was talking about this in reference to the Syria program in the context of his speech. So let's look at the reality there. President Obama has said he'd like to get 10,000 Syrian refugees in here by the end of September this year. Yes, Hillary Clinton has talked about increasing that substantially to 65,000 people being brought in the near term. Still, that is not hundreds of thousands of people out there. And more importantly, she has said none of these should come in without the most stringent screening and vetting process. Now, granted, there are security analysts who say it's very hard to have an infallible system, and especially hard when you talk about Syria, where the civil war makes checking background of people very, very difficult. That said, if you look at his overall claim, hundreds of thousands, no checking whatsoever, that is simply false. He also went after her on the economy, criticizing Washington in general for its economic policies. Listen.
We got here because we switched from a policy of Americanism, focusing on what's good for America's middle class, to a policy of globalism, focusing on how to make money for large corporations who can move their wealth and workers to foreign countries, all to the detriment of the American worker and the American economy itself.
The case can be made that there have been policies that have enabled the offshoring of jobs that are American jobs and now are somewhere else. But Trump does not mention there, though, and CNN's own investigations have proven, is that many of his manufacturing companies have been part of that trend, shipping jobs off to Asia and to China and to Central America. He probably should have mentioned that. His claim is true, but because he left that out, it's also a bit misleading. And finally, Trump is hitting Clinton over trade deals, specifically the North American Free Trade Agreement, which was signed by her husband in 1994, and a deal to let China into the World Trade Organization in 2001. Listen.
We've lost nearly 1/3 of our manufacturing jobs since these two Hillary-backed agreements were signed.
Did she support the deals? That's the first question. Yes, she did. Secondly, did they really cost us that many jobs? Many economic analysts say it is difficult to draw a clear cause effect because these are really big programs. We're talking about a substantial amount of time. There was a recession. We've had technological advances. Many things could come into play, and he exaggerates the numbers just a little bit. But if you look at just what he actually said, did we lose that many jobs since this happened, and did she approve it? Yeah, that is mostly true.
But not entirely accurate. So I went to their website, CNN's reality checklist, and I mean, you'll find great stuff by Trump, like Clinton allowed China to steal intellectual property. False. Trump claims Orlando shooter's father is a Taliban supporter. False. Comments that they rated true, Tony, are pretty mundane, like Clinton voted for the Iraq War, and she made money on speeches. But the majority of them are just wild conspiracy theories and fabrications.
No surprise there. You know, it's interesting. I've also seen an evolution in Nicole Wallace, who used to be George W. Bush's communications director. And she has really, and I want to say mellowed, but become much more even-headed and even-handed. And I think there's a growing frustration, and she's, of course, a Republican, conservative, a growing frustration among people that believe in the brand because, frankly, it's disappeared, Z.
Well, I think she's having a very difficult time defending Donald Trump. I mean, and she tries. I mean, I got to give her that. She tries, but she's kind of starting to look like an idiot.
Absolutely. Well, you have some audio from her, so let's go there.
Listen, we dive right into the substance of the speech, and we try to cover it objectively, but I think we have to pull back and realize the moment in which he delivers the speech. He delivers at a time when Republican leaders are running from the microphones in the halls of Congress, when he is rebuked more often than his message is echoed by members of his own party. So I saw this really as him trying to fix two problems and then get himself on offense. And I personally think it was by Trump's standards, it was superb. But by the standards we hold most normal politicians to, it was overly ambitious. He was trying to fix his immigration problem. He has a problem with the tone he has set for his candidacy about immigration, and he tried to soften that problem. He said, we only want to admit people who share our values, who love America. He's trying to give Republicans some more solid ground to stand on, to be behind the more controversial aspects of his immigration policy, which is to build a wall and to ban all Muslims, which a lot of Republicans have a lot of problems with. He also, politicians are often asked what they read. He clearly read Clinton Cash, which I've read. It's an interesting read. But he actually took the thesis of the book one step further in saying that not only did foreign governments donate money to the Clinton Foundation, which then had a direct line to Hillary Clinton, but then Hillary Clinton now supports the un-American values of those countries that donated to the Clinton Foundation. It's complicated. His base of voters may get it and it may cheer loudly, but I think he may have gone a bridge too far in a point that can be made much more simply around.
And so again, to take your model, and that is to watch for 24 hours like a message control group, you think that fairly
like an experiment.
Yeah, and you think that can be held up against as a test of the discipline of the Manafort, the new Manafort era?
I just think that is the test, right? So we will say that he read from his teleprompter, and our colleague Rachel laughed at me last time I gave him credit for doing so. But I think the test is to look at 24 whole hours, and I will pledge in service of this network to watch the next 24 hours and report back, because what happened the last time when he came out and gave a foreign policy speech that was riddled with its own problems was that he stepped on his own message by trotting out conspiracy theories on Fox and Friends in the morning. So this was a speech that had the definite imprint of Paul Manafort and the family, which has taken firm control of the Trump campaign. Trump, I'm told, realized by Sunday night that things weren't just bad, they were, quote, awful. And so he is trying to make a pivot. And when you have such a small skeletal campaign, you can pivot in 2 days because there's not very many people to to turn around. So he has made that pivot in the last hour. But we do have to watch the next 24 hours, the next, however many interviews he does, and see if he veers wildly off message like he's done in the past.
Nicole Wallace, who has taken the pledge, one of the few, the proud, the brave. Nicole.
I'll let you. I'll let you take this.
Well, again, as she said in a little more long-winded fashion than I will, Donald Trump is a chameleon. And when he tries to please an audience, when he tries to deliver a message that is designed for a certain niche of a political party, and it is literally littered with falsehoods, as we discussed yesterday, people won't care.
Yeah, they really don't. And in fact, I do have some audio that I want to get to in that vein, if we have time, and I believe that we do, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, let's do it now.
Okay.
So it's clearly working a little bit. However, what he's saying is that she is clearly making money off of it is a pretty bold statement that isn't necessarily based in facts.
Not necessarily based in fact. Nia Malika, there are no facts to support the allegations against the Clintons. I mean, there's a reason that you're not seeing real investigations into this, but does that matter politically?
No, I mean, I think in many ways, Donald Trump has sort of proven that we are post-fact-checking in many ways in this campaign. His speech yesterday was littered with falsehoods. And remember, this is a candidate who sort of burst onto the scene in 2012 as sort of flirting with the presidency, floating birther conspiracy theories. This is also a person who floated the conspiracy theory that somehow Ted Cruz's father was involved in the JFK assassination. So the end of the world and the discourse and the dialogue that we've seen from Donald Trump, which again I think goes back to his problems as a messenger. Is he a credible? Is he sort of a credible person in terms of advancing some of these ideas about Hillary Clinton, which, as you said, aren't really based in fact, but he's a master at that sort of, there are questions about this, and even though he can't really prove them, he sort of raises the idea and plants a seed.
How exhausting.
We're in a post-fact-checking time.
Yeah.
And this is the problem that you and I talk about ad nauseum, that they don't care. His minions do not care. And that he'll say what he wants. They'll believe him. Fact checkers will come out and they'll say, well, that's the liberal media trying to shut him up.
Well, let me close with a piece of news that I just got. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell today decided that the bipartisan effort that was being bandied about in the Senate that looked like it had an opportunity for a vote on a procedural rules measure stopped it dead in its tracks, and it will not be a part of any discussion moving forward. We will not have any kind of gun control legislation because Mitch McConnell is trying to protect himself and those that are in vulnerable Senate seats. So we'll have to leave it there for now.
Who saw that one coming?
He's the original asshat. And I want to remind the audience before we do the 411 on TNZ Talk that the day Barack Obama was elected to the presidency, not reelected, elected, within minutes of that result, Mitch McConnell said, the number one goal that I have is to make sure he doesn't reach a second term. He hadn't even taken the oath of office. So, Z, talk to me.
Yeah. So, the 411 on TNZ Talk, the ultimate podcast for all your information. How was that? You can go to tnztalk.com, find out how to support us, friend us, follow us, tweet us, Facebook us, all the information you ever wanted to know about TNZ Talk, but we're afraid to ask. And also, very important, how to support us. If we had more time, I tell you to go to tnztalk.com, click on support, go down to the Patreon link, do it now. We'll wait. The cost of a cup of coffee or two per month, you can pledge and help keep us doing what we're doing and informing you on what we'd like to do on a daily basis and permanently, where you can get your information from us. But we do need your support to do that. Like I said, if you can do $10 a month, $20 a month, even $100 a month if you've got that much money, $5 a cup of coffee. Go there, pledge an amount per month. We have all kinds of gifts that we will also send out. TNZ Talk tchotchkes that go into effect after a couple cycles of payments that we can actually afford to get you your T-shirt or mug or tote bag. TNZTalk.com, that's where you can go. Head over there now and do what you can.
All right, that's going to do it for us. We're not going to be back until next week, but in the meantime, hopefully the weather is great where you're at. If it is extremely hot, well, stay indoors. Take care of yourself. Drink plenty of liquids. In the meantime, for Richard Zombeck, I am Tony Trupiano, and you've been listening to TNZ Talk. Folks, have a great day, and as always, we ask that you be well.
Oh yeah, can you feel it? Just over the credits, just riffing now. Words and chords. Not the poetry and the real thing, but not bad for an ad-lib. Not good, but... And it's not long enough, so just do a little bit more. And that's nearly done. That's the final credit there. That's the end.